It's bedtime. By which I mean, like, it actually is bedtime. It's 0056 currently. And I need to get lots of rest because tomorrow, big day, I'm going to be making a whole ambient album from scratch. So, sweet dreams. See you tomorrow. Wakey, wakey. Rise and shine, and above all, good morning. I did not sleep well, so I am tired, and I am not sure whether or not that bodes well for the production of ambient music, because on the one hand, I'm very inclined to relax, but on the other hand, I am not inclined to accomplish anything. Alright, so what's going on? Well, first and foremost, I've already wasted loads of time because I just ended up spending like an hour in bed since the last shot. But basically, I want to make an ambient album in one day. I've got today off work, I've got the flat to myself. I'm just going to go around and try and produce an entire album's worth of ambient music. To my knowledge, that would make me the first person in the history of YouTube to make an album in one day. So that's exciting. Now, ambient music comes in a few forms, so I've come in with a little bit of a plan. You know, I've got various instruments laid around, electronic and real, and I'm kind of hoping that I might be able to get something like, you know, a song per instrument. That might be a good way to go. There are also a few different flavours of ambient music, so, you know, there's bleepy bloopy ambient music, there's improvised kind of minimalist piano type stuff, there's tape loop type stuff, there's found sound type stuff. I would like what I create to be fairly varied. I'd like there to be, you know, maybe 8 to 10 different tracks, maybe 30 to 40 minutes of music that's not just kind of like the same ambient washes throughout, but maybe a little bit of variety. That is the goal. I do not know how successful I'm going to be in accomplishing that goal, but we'll find out together, okay? So I want to start with a little bit of meal prep, essentially. I've got the Digitone in front of me now, and I figure that I'd like to design a couple of interesting pads. Every now and again you can design a pad that's kind of interesting enough to carry a track on its own. So hopefully I'm going to make a couple of those, and then they can be the focal points of interest for one or two different tracks that I might be making today. So, the excellent news is that we've made some form of progress here, and I have 4 different patches that I've made on the Digitone. So we've got this generic guy. I've got this one which has the ratio and the algorithm all getting messed about, so it ends up with these slightly glitchy sound. Which I think there's definitely some potential in that one. There is this pretty straightforward arpeggio really, but there's a little going on with the ratio again, so you almost get 2 arpeggios at once very subtly. I think you could make that pretty hypnotic if you put some effort into it. And finally we've got this, which is basically, come to think of it, a more interesting version of this first pad that we created. So it starts like this, but then, you know, we move on a little. And you start getting those little swarms of extra little slices of synth coming in and out of there. So I think that there is some interest to be had between these 4 pads. I'm a bit sick of the Digitone now, so let's make some more sounds. So you might be ever so slightly surprised to learn that at this point I am becoming slightly nervous, because it is approaching 1 o'clock and I've not put a single idea concretely down. So the solution to that, as is my solution to most things, is to just let my innermost hack loose. I've just set up a project on Ableton. This is my own piano plugin, actually, made with a contact microphone, which I'm hoping might make things a bit more interesting. I'm just going to improvise piano for a few minutes, and I don't know, hopefully it'll sound good.
Okay, so breaking news. Good news, really. The piano music, it was fine. I played for like 6 minutes. There was maybe 3 minutes of what could pass as music, so that's done. That's there. I kind of gave it a little fix in post, but yeah, it's all right. It's about where it needs to be to pass as something. Then, along that vein of kind of setting up some sliders on parameters and phoning it in on the piano, I did another one with a synth that I've made before called Degradation Engine. A synth, but as one of the parameters of the synth, you can also choose how degraded that synth gets via tape. So I spent like 6 or 7 minutes just messing about with that. And I was really, really happy with the results. So feel good about one of the tracks, and maybe no one will notice the other one.
Alrighty, I'm now all full up of Dahl, but I'm also all full up of optimism. The reason for that being that for the first time all day, I now have something of a plan for this next track. It has involved me having to borrow the tripod and my Zoom recorder here, so apologies that you're on the handheld mode. I am going to be recording this kalimba. Using the Zoom recorder here. It's very lazy stereo, but I don't have the time or the wherewithal to be messing about with like dual mic setups, so I want to get some stereo kalimba, and then I'd like to do some nice kind of loopy stuff with it through the Digitakt too. So there was one slightly suboptimal thing that happened, which is that I accidentally made it terrifying. Now, this is no longer a bedtime friendly ambient album, because this track will scare you. But I'm still pretty happy with it. So what I essentially have built myself now is another one of these like playgrounds for me to improvise with. Mess about with the mixes of each of these tracks of kalimba I've made. I think there are 5 of them. Fade in and fade out layers. That's the bones of another quite interesting track, I think. Cool. So, for the purposes of maintaining general health, it has become necessary to take a short walk break, because not only do dogs need walks, but people do too. However, the good news is that no break comes without an ulterior motive. So I've brought my tape recorder, and we'll get some found sounds. Hello, it's a little dark now, but I do have a little pattern brewing on the 303. It's getting sequenced by the Digitakt, and I'm quite liking the sound of it, so I'm thinking I'll get a few layers of this, and that could do for like a kind of a bleepy bloopy atmospheric type thing. Groundbreaking. Hello, it is 6:36 and I'm feeling okay about the current situation regarding this album. There are now 4 tracks conceptualised, but what I'm hoping to do now is cash in on the Digitone sound design that I did earlier. I'm hoping that I'm going to be able to use those to make some nice little soundscapes. So I've plugged in the keyboard, I've plugged in the Digitone. It is just a colossal mess in here. And it's making me quite stressed, but also I feel like just the delirium is starting to set in, which is only going to help me creatively. Hello, I have now made 3 recordings using those Digitone patches that I made earlier on. I was about to make a 4th, but it was just getting a little bit too samey, and I know that I'm phoning it in to the max, but it was just pushing a little bit too much. I wanted to do something different. So the different I've decided to do,
is to run over the same old ground as earlier on. But instead of that kalimba thing that ended up being petrifying, I would like to do that with a piano and have it end up pleasant, would be the ideal goal of such a piece of music. I'm pushing hunger at the moment. I'm quite hungry. It is 20 to 8. Yeah, getting a little peckish. However, I'd like to, at the very least, get some nice little phrases recorded, and then I can load them into the Digitakt, same as earlier on, and make some nice little floaty ambience. I'm trying my absolute hardest, but it is hard. Hey, so something really cool and chill just happened, which is that I was going over all of the audio and I was exporting it, kind of seeing what I had and how much music I had and how many minutes I had overall. And it turns out the darndest thing happened. All 3 of the Digitone tracks just completely corrupted and unlistenable. So I thought that I had 8 tracks, but no, I have a mere 5 tracks, which is insufficient by any metric, and so we must press on. It is 10 o'clock currently, which means we're approaching the 12-hour mark, and yeah, all I'm going to ask is that you like and subscribe. So, we're done, or at the very least, I'm done, mentally, emotionally, and actually physically as well. I managed to hit 8 songs, having re-recorded the last 3. Actually very glad I did, because the re-recordings were much better than the original takes of those, so secret blessings there. But with those 8 songs, it comes in just under 40 minutes, which is, good or not, interesting or not, technically that is an album. So an ambient album has been produced in a day. The question remains, was it worth it? Obviously no. I just want to elaborate on this now that a few days have passed, because I was not being very eloquent just then. Basically, it turns out that it is difficult to do pretty much anything for 12 plus hours straight, whether that's ambient music or other kinds of music or any other activity. Like, there's a stereotype with ambient music specifically that it's easy to make. And sure, when I'm making an ambient track, it normally will only take me like up to a couple of hours. But equally, those are a couple of involved hours. To make ambient music, you've got to be immersed in it, you've got to feel for it and care about it. And that's quite an exhausting thing, even if the material effort isn't that much. You know, after those couple hours spent making an ambient track, I'll normally be pretty creatively spent afterwards. With the music in this video, like, I like how some of it has turned out, but it's all pretty simplistic. It all would be much better if it had more time and energy and effort put into it. And let's face it, all of these tracks are completely meaningless because I was just pushing them out to fill space, fill time. That doesn't feel like a great way to produce art. So that's why I say it wasn't worth it. There is one circumstance in which it is worth it, and that's if you're making a YouTube video. Now, this music is on Bandcamp. That's less because it's a big, great artistic statement and more just to prove that the album's real. If you want to listen to it, then go for it. But honestly, if you're going to spend 40 minutes of your time listening to my music,
I'd suggest just listening to this one instead because it's much better. Go make some music, but not too much because it should mean something. Unless you're a YouTuber. Bye.